Hi, my name is Susan Miranda and I own the Chromatic Fusion Oboe Studio. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that have worked for me to help brand new beginning oboe students. And if you are a brand new student yourself, I hope some of these ideas help you. When I start out students, we start with no oboe reed. We just begin with our bodies. And there are some cats in the background. We start with talking about posture, and I actually usually have students stand, but oftentimes in band it's very important to sit up straight so you can breathe fully through all of your lungs. So if you're hunched over, you can't breathe fully. Another thing that is important about your posture is your chin. Because if you're down here, and you can even hear in the way that my voice changed. So I always say make your chin parallel to the floor. That's the same if you're standing or if you are sitting. So we've talked about posture. We've talked about posture just sitting, posture in making sure that you are looking straight forward with your chin parallel to the ground. Another thing that I discuss is breathing. So that goes hand in hand with posture. You are sitting up straight and you are breathing with your belly, filling up your belly. And one of the activities that I do at every single first lesson is have a student lie on the ground on their back and fill their belly without movement of their chest or their shoulders. And laying on the ground on your back actually kind of has gravity push you down. So it is actually easier to fill your belly with air. So once I have them lie on their backs, then I have them stand up and I have them put their entire backs, shoulder blades against the wall and heels against the wall. Similar to the gravity, but pushing those parts of your body against the wall also makes it easier to breathe just with your belly and not lift your shoulders, because I think you can kind of feel your shoulders move against the wall if you're breathing incorrectly. So if they can do the first step on the ground, then move to the next step. If they can do that step, then I have them step away from the wall and see if they can do it with no extra help, just their bodies standing, breathing, and filling their bellies. If they're still struggling with moving their chest or their shoulders or any of that, I will lightly put 2 fingers on their shoulder or on their chest. I always ask permission just to make sure that they're comfortable with that, and then try to breathe. So when a student is breathing incorrectly for specifically the oboe, we just need a lot of extra air. It might look like this. And a lot of times if you're out running, that's what happens after a big run. You're breathing really heavily just in your chest. So we want to bring that lower. And see, my chest didn't move, my shoulders didn't move. And all I filled, you can't really see because I'm wearing black, but all I filled was my belly. So when all of that is happening and posture is good, then we can talk about what it feels like inside. And I tend to call that your diaphragm. Other teachers might call it something different. I draw a really goofy picture, like it's almost a stick figure, but it's worse than a stick figure. And I draw lungs, and I draw squiggly lines for intestines, and I give them a funny face, and it's great. And then I draw kind of this little squiggly line in between the lungs and the intestines, and I say that that's the diaphragm. And a lot of times if a student, by hearing something that doesn't work, by experiencing something that doesn't work, the visual of looking at it will work. The important thing is to kind of go towards, what works for the student, their learning styles, which in a first lesson, you're probably not going to know quite yet. So by doing all of the things, sometimes you can kind of watch and see the light bulb. Oh, the light bulb just went off. Okay, so I need to either verbally describe something or write it down for them and they can get it. It's not always that easy, and as teachers, it is our jobs to figure out how can I make sure that they are understanding this concept. So that's where I've done, as many ways as possible until I can get a student to kind of understand what needs to happen. I will draw this beautiful stick figure, and then I will get my oboe case. And it's really quite handy because it has this lovely strap. With the strap, I will let it loose a little bit, and then I say, okay, so if your lungs are, on top of this, and you tighten it, still kind of talking like it's your diaphragm, if you tighten that diaphragm and it does that, what happens to your lungs? And they're like, it pushes on them. Okay, so when the diaphragm pushes on your lungs, what's inside your lungs? Air. Okay, so after it pushes on those lungs, what happens to that air? Oh, it goes up and out your mouth. Yes, that is exactly what happens. And again, the visual often will really help a student. So the next thing I do is I will have the student lay on their back again. Oftentimes there's a lot of laying on the floor in the very first lesson, which interestingly enough kind of creates an interesting rapport because they realize that A, I really want them to understand these concepts. B, I am not too good to, lay on the floor beside them and show them as well. And C, I'm a little bit goofy. So lay on the floor. Again, I say, okay, I'm going to have you do sit up, bend your knees. So they bend their knees. I hold their feet for them and make them do a sit up. Okay, so how did that feel to you? Where did you feel the tightness? And, sometimes super athletic kids are, I don't know. Okay, well, we need to do it again. So they do a sit-up again. And where did you feel the tightness? Oh, okay, I felt it right here. Then I have them stand up, and I have them, again, similar to the breathing exercise, I have them try to recreate it while just standing up. Can you tighten that? Okay, yes, I could. It just happened. When you tighten those muscles, it really helps the air come out of your mouth. And especially with this little tiny reed. And that's another thing that you can explain is, look how tiny that little hole is. Do you think that it's going to be easy to blow through that, to get air through that, or do you think you're going to need some extra pressure? And that's why we're doing these breathing exercises, diaphragm exercises, and we do all of this before we even touch the reed. Okay, so they know how to sit properly or stand properly. They know, how to, we're not quite to holding the instrument, but that could go, hand in hand. I usually don't. They know how to breathe. They know what their diaphragm is and how it functions in the relationship with the oboe. The next thing is the reed, okay? So oftentimes we will get to this, but I will just do it in a way of teaching embouchure. So they don't actually get to play the oboe on the first day. And I'll touch on that a little bit because I have found that students that just jump in and just want to play notes, that's really awesome and that's exciting and that's fantastic. However, I have noticed that they tend to not learn things correctly, and then down the line, even though they were so gung-ho and so excited, they tend to get really frustrated. And early in my teaching, I was like, oh, they're so excited, let's just teach them notes. And over the years, I've kind of perfected that a little bit. So I let them, use the reed, and we first talk about embouchure. The way that I describe embouchure, and again, I will describe things until I'm blue in the face in every which way I can think of, and almost always I can get a student to finally form an embouchure the way that I'm looking for, you know, and maybe if you have a different teacher that has a different process, definitely listen to them. This is the way that I do it, and this is what has worked for me. So one of the ways that I start is make a kiss face. And I might say something like, just, you know, kiss yourself on the hand. Because sometimes people will be like, and that's not a kiss. So then I make them kiss their hand, and it's like this hard, and I'm like, do you think that that's a nice kiss? No. Okay. So kind of make a fluffy kiss face. And then invert it and bring it in. This sometimes works, this sometimes doesn't, but this is how I start. So let's say they're perfect. Great. Okay. Now do it by yourself. Great. Okay, they've got it. So then we would go to putting the reed in the mouth and, you know, maybe blowing a little bit while still holding that embouchure. So let's say that magical kiss face situation does not work for you or for your student. Okay? Plan B. We have to try something different. Over the summer, I actually worked with a band director who was writing a guide on how to switch, I think, flute players to oboe. And it was really interesting. But one thing that I learned from that, and I think he actually took it from the Fox Products, like Beginning Oboe brochure, which is awesome because I play a Fox saying oboe. One of those things was say oboe in like a French accent, and I'm not going to do it well, but oboe. So that gives you kind of that, so your corners are nice and tight, and we'll talk about some of these things. Your chin is nice and flat, and you have that space. So that works too, because I have found that oftentimes switching students from other instruments like the flute or the saxophone or the clarinet can be trickier, and you might have to use other ways or ideas, specifically with, let's say, a clarinet. They are used to biting down and using their teeth. So something that I say to all students, but which really might kind of hit hard with one of those students, is you actually want to keep your teeth apart. So one of the things I will say is, do you know those little tiny carrots? Imagine that there's one of those between your teeth, okay? Little carrot, and then form your embouchure around that. So your teeth are nice and open in the back, but you still have that embouchure. So another thing for teachers is pretty much every single student will have some type of dimple if they are forming a proper embouchure. If you can watch mine, I have dimples right here, and it's not like, you know, that some of them are the dimples right here, but some type of dimple, sometimes they're down here. It depends, but the reason for that is because they are sealing around the reed. So you want your skin, your, you know, lips to be taut to your teeth. The reason I say that, you know, we want the teeth open is because we don't want to clamp down on that reed and, you know, squish that hole, that teeny tiny little hole. But you want to make sure that no air is slipping out. Or just like a straw, have you ever tried to drink out of a straw that had a hole in it? Did it work? Probably not. There's another cat. I foster cats, so that is why you are seeing cats in the background. They're very nice, and they like to try to eat my plant. So it is important to not let any of that air out and not have any holes, and that is why we have those dimples. So sometimes what you will see is the scrunchy face, a whole bunch of little things in their chin. And so to kind of get rid of that, sometimes talking about moving your jaw forward a little bit, forward and down, will help them to bring their teeth apart, so you can really have that open embouchure. Because listen to this. That's a really closed embouchure, and listen to this. That's a nice open embouchure. You're just not going to get air into the reed or through the oboe if you are clamping down. So if you can start them out with a nice open embouchure, that is going to get them much farther with oboe and immediately. So after teaching the embouchure, I will then have them blow and hold it, and the goal is to see how long they can blow in the reed with a perfect embouchure, and if it ever moves, I make them stop immediately. So I'll just give you an example. Okay, so an example of no, you have to stop is, oh, okay, stop, no more. And then we try again, and sometimes I might even put a finger on their chin. Some of the things I will say is corners in, because you want to kind of have that little circle where everything is nice and tight, but when you put your corners in, that can just automatically make your teeth kind of go apart and move everything, so you have that nice space where the reed can go. And then their first assignment is to go home and to, let's see, I think I say 5 times a day for the first week. I want them to time how long they can blow into their reed with a perfect embouchure. And I ask them to, use their phone to time, or even involve, a family member to help them time and watch their embouchure and make sure it doesn't move and that it stays a nice embouchure 5 times a day. And I say, if you want to do it all at once, all 5 right in a row, that's fine. I will always also suggest 2 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening. Anything like that works. And the idea is that they're building the muscle. There's so many muscles in your mouth, but also creating muscle memory. And the idea that if they stop immediately, if something gets goofy, they won't create that as a memory. And hopefully they will only remember the proper embouchure. Another thing that's extremely important with embouchure is using a mirror. One of the things I will also do is take a picture of them when they finally get that embouchure good. I will take a photo of it and I will text it to them or the parent so they can have it in front of them. Tape it to their mirror, have it on their music stand with their, their small little mirror that might sit on their music stand. Because if I'm not there, how exactly are they going to remember, the perfect thing to do? Little 5th graders will often, think that they might be doing the right thing, but then a little checkup with a photo, and they go, oh, that does not look at all like, what the picture looks like. Let me see if I can emulate that. If during the first lesson we can't quite get to where we need to be, I might take a picture of my embouchure and send that home so they can at least attempt to create that look. If that's what needs to happen, then, it's better than nothing. So, let's see. Posture. We haven't even gotten to touching the oboe, which is fine. And one of the things I think I mentioned earlier is that I have found that a student that is really excited to learn the right way, and a family that supports that, is a student that is probably going to stick with the oboe, but also is a student that I would be more inclined to want to teach, and would probably be more teachable and it would be just less stress for both student and teacher, because they're willing, and willing to listen and willing to trust in what you have to say, which tends to make a better oboe student. If you start things out the right way, it tends to make things easier down the line. So that is kind of my way of teaching a very beginning oboe lesson. And I hope that helps you. This will be posted on my website, chromaticfusion.com. And, I just want oboe students to really have success. And if you are teaching the oboe and you are not an oboe teacher, I want you to have the tools that you need to be successful. Thanks for watching.